Imagine walking into a bank, dressed in a tailored suit, a successful entrepreneur, a leader in your industry, only to be treated like a criminal. Not because of your actions, not because of any wrongdoing, but simply because of who you are. This is the story of Michael Jones, a man who built his empire from the ground up, only to be reminded that in some eyes, success doesn't erase prejudice.
Welcome to Shadow Crime. Before we begin, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can continue creating even better content. Thank you so much. All right, let's get started.
Michael Jones had spent years proving himself. He wasn't born into wealth. He had fought for every inch of success, late nights, early mornings, endless sacrifices. And now, as the CEO of Apex Capital, he had built something real, something powerful. So when he walked into Regency First Bank that afternoon, he wasn't expecting trouble. The sleek glass doors parted as he stepped inside, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. The bank was quiet, the air crisp, with the scent of fresh paper and ink. He approached the counter with confidence, placing a neatly organized folder on the counter. "Good afternoon," he said, flashing a polite smile. "I'd like to make a deposit into my company's account." The teller, a woman in her mid-30s named Lisa, barely looked up. "Company account?" she asked, her tone already laced with doubt. Michael nodded. "Yes, Apex Capital. I have all the necessary documents." Lisa finally glanced at him, but it wasn't the look of professionalism. It was the look of suspicion. Her eyes scanned him, not his paperwork, but him. The way he was dressed, the way he carried himself. Yet there was something else in her gaze, something colder. "I'm going to need 2 forms of ID, she said flatly. Michael was used to standard procedures, so he reached into his leather wallet and slid over his driver's license and business card with the Apex Capital logo embossed in gold. Lisa barely glanced at them before pursing her lips. "Do you have anything else? A company registration document?" Michael exhaled slowly. "I don't usually need that for a deposit, but sure." He pulled out another folder, this time containing the business license, tax identification number, and even a corporate registration certificate, but none of it seemed to matter. Lisa's expression remained unreadable, but her eyes flickered toward something, the bank security guard standing near the entrance. And then she reached for her phone. "Give me a moment," she said, dialing a number. "I need to verify something." Michael felt it then, that invisible shift in the air, the kind that told him this wasn't about policy, this wasn't about documents. This was about perception, because despite the driver's license, despite the business paperwork, despite the fact that he was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, Lisa still didn't believe he belonged there. The bank security guard took a slow step forward. Michael clenched his jaw, holding himself steady. He had faced obstacles before. He had been underestimated, overlooked. But something about this moment cut deeper, because in Lisa's eyes, he wasn't a businessman, he was a suspect. The tension in the air thickened. Lisa, still clutching the phone, let out a sharp exhale. She set it down, then looked directly at Michael. This time, not just with suspicion, but with open doubt. "I need to verify a few things," she said loud. Enough for everyone in the bank to hear. Heads turned, conversations around them quieted. A few customers, once occupied with their own transactions, were now glancing over, watching. Lisa leaned forward, her voice colder now. "This entire situation doesn't make sense." Michael's jaw tightened. "What exactly doesn't make sense?" he asked, keeping his voice even. Lisa folded her arms. "A large deposit from someone I've never seen before, claiming to own a financial firm. It raises red flags." Michael inhaled slowly, reining in the frustration burning beneath his skin. He had dealt with doubt before. He had faced skepticism in boardrooms, been underestimated in negotiations. But this wasn't skepticism. This was something else entirely. Lisa turned to the security guard standing a few feet away. "Sir, could you come over here?" she called, making sure the entire bank could hear. Michael watched as the guard, broad-shouldered, expressionless, moved toward him. His presence sent a silent message. This wasn't just routine verification. This was a warning, and the worst. Part? Everyone watching knew it. Michael exhaled sharply, then met Lisa's gaze. "Is it because I don't look like someone who could own a company like this?" The question landed like a stone. For a split second, Lisa hesitated. A flicker of something, guilt, crossed her face. But she recovered quickly, shaking her head. "It's standard procedure," she said, her voice stiff. Michael let out a dry chuckle. "Standard procedure." He tapped his neatly stacked documents. "I've given you my driver's license, my business card, my company's registration. If you still don't, believe me, you can call the number on this check to verify the account directly." Lisa pressed her lips into a thin line. She could call, she should call, but she didn't. Instead, she grabbed the bank's internal phone and dialed a different number. "I'm calling Apex Capital myself," she announced loudly, as if that proved she was justified. Michael stood there, hands still resting on the counter, his posture firm but composed. The seconds ticked by. The entire bank seemed to be waiting. Then, finally, Lisa's expression shifted, her back straightened. Her eyes widened slightly. On the other end of the line, someone had just confirmed the truth. Michael was the CEO. This was his company, and she had just humiliated a multi-millionaire businessman in front of an entire bank, for no reason. Lisa swallowed hard, gripping the phone a little tighter before slowly hanging up. Michael didn't move. He didn't gloat. He didn't even speak because he didn't have to. The damage had already been done. The silence after Lisa hung up the phone was deafening. She stood frozen, eyes darting between Michael and the security guard, who was still hovering nearby, waiting for direction. Then, "Lisa, what the hell is going on?" A new voice cut through. The tension. Greg Dawson, the branch manager, stepped onto the floor, his sharp suit and commanding presence making it instantly clear that he was in charge. He had noticed the commotion from his office, but now, as he glanced between the tense faces, he knew something had gone very wrong. Lisa swallowed hard. "Sir, I was just verifying a suspicious transaction," she blurted out. "I was following protocol." But before she could finish, Michael finally spoke. His voice was calm, measured. "No," he said flatly, "you weren't following protocol. You were making assumptions based on what you saw, not on the truth." Lisa's mouth opened, but no words came out. Greg turned to Michael, his brow furrowing. "Mr. Jones." And then it hit him. Michael Jones, the CEO of Apex Capital, one of the bank's largest corporate clients. Greg's entire posture changed in an instant. His expression shifted from confusion to horror, and he suddenly looked like a man whose career had just been thrown into jeopardy. Lisa, still scrambling to justify herself, tried again. "Sir, I was just doing my job. I didn't mean—" Greg cut her off. "Michael Jones isn't just a verified customer. He's a VIP client. His company brings in millions through this bank." He paused, turning back to Michael. "Mr. Jones, I sincerely apologize. There must have been a misunderstanding." But Michael didn't let him finish. "There was no misunderstanding, Greg," he said coolly. "There was a choice to assume I didn't belong, a choice to question my legitimacy." Despite all the evidence in front of her, Lisa's face drained of color. She had nothing to say, because what could she say? She had judged a man who had built an empire from nothing, a man whose success wasn't up for debate, and now the reality of her actions was sinking in. Greg exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple. "Lisa, I want you in my office, now." But the truth was there was no fixing this. because Lisa had made a decision that went beyond protocol, and now she was the one being judged. Lisa's hands were shaking. She had spent the last few years working at Regency First Bank, believing she was good at her job, but in one moment, one choice, she had lost everything. "Greg, please," she pleaded, desperation thick in her voice. "It was just a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to offend anyone." Greg, still visibly shaken by what had just happened, didn't hesitate. "Lisa, this isn't a misunderstanding. You humiliated one of our biggest clients, questioned his credibility without reason, and treated him like a criminal in front of the entire bank." His voice was sharp, unwavering. "Clear out your desk, you're done here." The finality of it hit her like a brick wall. Lisa's lips trembled. She turned to Michael, as if hoping he might show her mercy, but Michael wasn't looking at just her anymore. He was looking at everyone, the other tellers, the security guard, the managers, the bystanders who had watched it all happen and said nothing. This wasn't just about Lisa. This was about a system that made it easy for people like her to assume men like him didn't belong. And he wasn't about to let that slide. Michael stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Let me be clear. Lisa is not the only problem here." The entire bank floor went silent. She made a choice today, but she was able to make that choice so easily because of the culture that exists here. This isn't just about one employee, it's about an environment that allows these biases to exist in the first place. Greg shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Jones, Michael didn't let him finish. Tell me, Greg, what if I wasn't Michael Jones, CEO of Apex Capital? What if I was just a regular guy, coming in to deposit his paycheck? What if I didn't have the resources, the connections, or the status to prove myself?" Greg opened his mouth, then shut it again, because they both knew the answer. People like Lisa would have dismissed that man, labeled him, humiliated him, and no one would have questioned it. Michael exhaled slowly, then leveled his gaze at Greg. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to do more than just fire one employee. You're going to change the way this bank operates." Greg swallowed hard. What do you mean?" "I mean mandatory bias training. I mean re-evaluating how you treat customers who don't look like they belong. I mean making sure this never happens again, not just to someone like me, but to anyone." Michael let the weight of his words settle before adding, "Because if you don't, I will personally make sure Apex Capital and every other major client I know takes their business elsewhere." The message was crystal clear. This wasn't about Lisa anymore. This was about real change. The bank floor was still tense, the weight of what had just happened settling over everyone like a heavy fog. Lisa was gone. The confrontation was over. But Michael knew that if he just walked away now, nothing would change. So before leaving, he turned back one last time, scanning the room, the tellers, the managers, the customers who had witnessed it all in silence. Then he spoke. "Let me leave you with this." The air shifted. Every eye in the room was on him. Never judge someone by how they look, because you never know. They might just be the person who could change your life. The words hung in the air, sinking into the minds of those who had watched Lisa's downfall, those who had witnessed how quickly a snap judgment could backfire. Because today, Lisa lost her job. But what if she had handled things differently? What if, instead of assuming she had simply done her job fairly, she might have earned the trust of a multimillionaire CEO? She might have built a connection with one of the bank's biggest clients. Instead, her own prejudice cost her everything. And that lesson wasn't just for her. It was for everyone. Greg, still shaken, turned to his employees. "Everyone into the conference room. Now." The urgency in his voice made it clear. This wasn't just going to be brushed under the rug. The employees shuffled in, some exchanging Uneasy glances, some still processing what had just unfolded before them. This wasn't just about saving face, it was about fixing something that had been broken for a long time. As Michael walked out the doors of Regency First Bank, he knew he had made an impact, not just on Lisa, not just on Greg, but on everyone who had seen how one moment of bias, 1 second of judgment could cost someone the biggest opportunity of their life. And as the doors shut behind him, one thing was certain: they would never forget this day. The cost of assumptions, a lesson in judgment and opportunity in life. The way we see others often determines the way we treat them, and too often our judgments are based on surface-level perceptions rather than truth. Michael Jones's experience at the bank is a reminder that prejudice isn't just harmful, it can be costly. Lisa, the bank teller, didn't lose her job because she was bad at her work. She lost it because she let assumptions guide her actions. She saw Michael, a successful CEO, and instead of treating him with the same professionalism she would offer anyone else, she saw someone who, in her mind, didn't fit the image of success. And that split-second judgment cost her more than just her job. It cost her the chance to earn the respect and trust of a powerful connection. But the lesson here isn't just about Lisa. It's about all of us. How many times in our lives have we looked at someone and assumed we knew their story? Maybe it was a young person dressed casually and we assumed they weren't ambitious. Maybe it was an older worker and we assumed they couldn't keep up. Maybe it was someone with an accent, a certain background, or a different way of carrying themselves, and we judged them before even giving them a chance. And in doing so, how many opportunities have we missed? The truth is, the most valuable people in our lives often come in unexpected forms. The mentor who shapes our career, the employee who turns out to be brilliant, the stranger who teaches us something we never knew we needed. But if we judge too quickly, we may push away the very people who could change our lives. For older generations, this lesson is especially important. We have the wisdom of experience, but that doesn't mean we're immune to bias. If we want the younger generation to listen, to grow, to succeed, we must lead by example. That means practicing fairness, embracing open-mindedness, and teaching others that true character is found beyond appearances. Michael's words at the end of the story say it all. Never judge someone by how they look, because you never know. They might just be the person who could change your life. And perhaps if we remember that, we can avoid making the same mistake Lisa did.